Many real estate investors are sitting on the sidelines, waiting for market conditions to improve or just for a better time to invest in real estate. And as a result, they're missing out on a lot of opportunities. While at the same time, real estate skills students are taking action, closing deals, and making money. I'm very excited to have one of those students here with me today. Stephanie, share her journey of closing not one, but four fix and flip properties since joining our program over the last year and a half. Stephanie is a small business owner in the food service industry who's been operating her business for over 20 years, but was looking for something to help better prepare herself for retirement. I'm so excited to have her on to learn more about her journey and get into some of the details of these properties that she purchased, renovated, and made look like absolute designer houses and then successfully exited them. In this video, we'll be getting into the details of these flip deals, like the numbers, the lessons learned, and the outcomes of all of these projects. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Ryan Zomarodi, investor and co-founder of realestateskills.com. Get ready to be inspired today as we hear from an investor who thought about going all in on real estate and is now living and breathing it. First off, thank you, Stephanie, for coming back on our channel. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Happy to just chat and share what I can with anyone who is looking for a little inspiration to keep going down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy gal. It's taken a little bit to line up this meeting for us, so can't thank you enough for taking the time. First off, let's just kind of run it back and recap. What were you doing before joining Real Estate Skills, and what kind of drew you to real estate in the first place?
Sure. So my professional career has for many years been in the food service world. I own it's a medium sized, I guess, small business. It's a meal service company. Have been doing it for over 20 years, like you mentioned, and am going to be exiting that business within the next couple of years. So um, I'm not ready to retire, unfortunately, financially or otherwise yet. So just I think I got back into looking into real estate opportunities to see what I could make happen after my actual source of income from my business, is gone. So years ago, I had just sort of by accident purchased a vacation home um, across the country. So I was living in Minneapolis at the time, and I went on vacation in Key West, Florida. Decided I should buy a little condo there as a vacation home, and then I turned it into a short-term rental. This is far before Airbnb was a thing. So it was, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just did it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to rent it out when I'm not around. Perfect. Kept it for a bunch of years, sold it, um, and made, it did very well for me. But anyway, I sold it maybe 15 years later or so. And that was probably in about 2015. And that's when all of a sudden Airbnb and Verbo and everybody became this huge industry. And I had already exited. So
Mhm.
I didn't do anything with real estate, for a number of years. And then a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago now, I started to dabble in it a little bit more. And I did purchase a few new vacation rentals in markets that are highly dependent on tourism. Um, those are operating as short term rentals now, and everything's fine except that I depleted all of my funds to make down payments on those properties. And so that's the long and short of how I got back to real estate skills. I decided I needed to learn wholesaling because I really wanted to make some quick money. I didn't have any interest in flipping, anything like that. I just wanted to learn how to wholesale so I could make some money and replenish um, my coffers, if you will. And so that's when I found you guys. I went through the training, eyes lit up, whole new world open for me. Um, Worked really hard at it while still doing managing my business. Um, for about 6 months, and I never quite got a wholesale deal across the finish line. And I had a property on a contract that I thought was going to be my first wholesale deal. Couldn't make it happen, and I just, long story short, said, "Screw it, I'm going to flip it myself." And that was my first flip. And so I'm I've decided that the flipping area is where I think for me it makes more sense. I like it. I like the challenge. I like it a lot. And so that's what I've been focusing on since. Of course, if a wholesale deal happened to work in the meantime, I would, of course, pursue that. But my focus has really been on flips since then.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you're kind of like an accidental fix and flipper, kind of.
100%. I had
Yeah.
no desire, none, to do any sort of flipping, none, and no knowledge about it either, 0. Other than what I've learned, through real estate skills, but as far as the actual repair part of the equation, 0, 0 knowledge. So,
Yeah. Well, I commend you for it sounds like you had purchased several properties, without having a lot of experience or really a roadmap. And, the first one, you let go. I'm sure you wish you kind of kept that, but it still did well
mhm,
for you. And then
right.
as that, short-term rental industry kind of grew, there's more management companies, there's more infrastructure to make it easier. It sounds like you kind of just got back in the game. But like, really every investor faces, you can only buy so many properties until you deplete your savings and your investment capital. So now
Exactly.
you're looking for ways to create an active income in real estate. While working in your business, I assume, right? You're still working
Yeah.
in the growing the
I am
business.
still I have about 2 more years, so I'm very actively involved in that as well, but, I do have some flexibility, obviously, as a self-employed person, so I do get to spend a fair amount of my time in the real estate world as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's amazing to have a business for as long as you had. You're obviously doing something right. Most businesses fail after the first 5 years. Even if they make it that far. So, I mean, what was it about the business or just maybe the industry that maybe you weren't getting out of that you had to look elsewhere? Outside of kind of the success you've had as a small business owner.
Um, Primarily, so my food service business I own with a business partner, and just we have both for years just said, at some point we're going to decide when we're both ready to be done, and that's going to be our exit date. And so that's what's happening. We're just literally coming to, our agreed upon exit date. We're, you know, kind of old, been doing it for a long time. It's just time to do something different.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
and so you're kind of looking for. I know you've called it your encore career. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm planning to exit this career, and so what's next? And so it sounds like yeah, real estate's kind of been that thing. And
100%.
so yeah, you mentioned kind of going into the active side of real estate. Not wanting to touch fix and flips. Were there any other reasons besides just not having the know how? Didn't really want to swing the hammers and kind of get your hands dirty in these deals, or what was it about fix and flips that?
Yeah, I mean, all the things. I didn't know anything about the flipping, the construction world, the remodeling world. And I just, not a big fan of doing my own household improvements. I just want to hire someone to do it and call it a day. So, but then when I, started learning through real estate skills, and then through my local real estate investment association, um, how I could partner with contractors who will be the smart people and do all those things. Um, I was like, okay, maybe I can make it work. Let's just try it and see what happens. So I went into that first flip not having a clue. I trusted the general contractor that I ended up selecting and using. Um, I just put my trust in him, and he he was also an investor, had done numerous flips himself. So he knew what would be worth spending the money on, what wouldn't be worth it. He helped guide me through all of that, and it turned out to be it perfect. It's just what I needed. I learned what I needed. Well, no, I didn't learn everything I needed to learn. I learned a lot in that first flip, and even before it hit the market, I knew I was looking for my next one.
Yeah. Did you make that partner, or sorry, did you make that contractor a partner in the deal, or did you just find
Oh,
one that understood investing and could kind of speak
yeah.
the same language of what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly. I was a little too reluctant to go into a partnership. I don't know. I'm a covering my butt kind of gal, so I if it's someone I don't know very well, I just really rather take it on myself. I'm sure I paid him a little more than I probably could have if I made a different deal. But for me, at the moment, it was the right deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, when it comes to contractors, right, cheap doesn't always mean the best, right? It doesn't
Right,
mean you should go with the cheapest bid that you
right.
get. So it's interesting to hear that you say that. So yeah, before we kind of dive into some of these deals, just higher level, how many deals have you completed? What does your portfolio look like today? And are you still living in Florida, or and where are some of the deals that you're doing?
So I have lived in between Key West, Florida and Minneapolis, Minnesota for 20 years ish. And so my primary business is located in Minneapolis, and I come and go and I come and go and I come and go all the time. So when I am in Minneapolis, that's where I've actually been doing my flips because I have more time. I have more spare time, I guess, I'm sitting in Minneapolis right now. I have more spare time when I'm here. And I also, because I was born and raised here, I just know the market a lot better, understand the neighborhoods a lot better. So it's all been in Minneapolis. I do have a vacation rental property in Florida, but other than that, just my primary home.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, you're part-time in Minneapolis, part-time in Florida.
Yeah.
So when you're in Minneapolis, you know the area. We always recommend starting in your backyard. You have that
Yeah.
local
You guys
advantage.
taught me that. Totally. Yeah.
So that's it's cool because now you're able to go into these markets. Some of the flips are in cities that I've never even heard of. So, you know these areas, you know where the growth is, the opportunity is. And so
Yeah.
I love to see you kind of leveraging your experience, right? Because that's something that I think people forget is like we come into this business with experience. It's all about real estate, it's about locations. That's
Yeah.
the number one rule in real estate. So, that gives us advantage over, out of state investors or long distance investors just because we know those areas a little bit better whenever we grew up in an area.
Sure. Yep.
So that's amazing. So your first flip, right? It was a property you got under contract. You found it on the MLS, right? And you put it under contract. We're expecting to wholesale it. That didn't necessarily work out. Your buyers were getting cold feet, didn't want it. But unlike a lot of other wholesalers who'd say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to cancel the contract. I don't want to pursue this. Like that's my only exit strategy." You decided to be resourceful and committed to the deal, and you said, "Hey, look, why don't I do it? I know this is a good deal. I see the numbers. I know the rehab budget and the ARV, so I know there's a profit margin at the end of the day." So you actually took it down, purchased it, went through the learning lessons, and if I recall, when you went to resell it, it went pending in just a few days,
Yeah.
and ultimately
24
closed.
hours.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. All of that is exactly correct with one exception. It was an off-market deal, but it only came to me through a realtor that I had already worked with and submitted other offers, from the MLS on. So that networking thing that you guys are so brilliant to emphasize with your students, the more contacts you make, the more offers you make, the more you're involved in your area, that's when things start to happen. And so that's exactly what happened here.
awesome. Yeah, we always like to say on market leads to off market. It's the fact that
Yeah.
you're out there networking, putting your name out there, putting your business out there, that the deals started to come to you. So love that's how you found this deal. And so how much did you purchase it for, if you recall, and then how much did it
Yeah.
ultimately sell for?
So I bought it for 180, I believe. Might have been 182, but roughly 180. I put in about 102,000 in repairs, and sold it for 380. So it was a 100-year-old house, was really dilapidated. And the biggest thing, I think the biggest reason that I was able to make a decent amount of money is because there was a, 3-season porch that I just turned into a four season porch, and I added square footage just by doing that. So I literally just added some baseboard heat, uh, insulated the walls, and made it look nice and pretty, and I had 200 extra square feet, so that really helped with the value.
Yeah, every additional, square footage can add a lot of value. When you're talking, three, four, $500 a square foot of value for a renovated home, every additional, 50, 100, 200 square feet you can add, it can, increase the value significantly. So it's
Right,
really cool
right.
that you were able to implement that and capitalize on it. So yeah, that's an amazing first deal. And then
Yeah, I
so
mean,
yeah.
I made about 40 grand, and I didn't really think that I was going to. I thought I might make 10. I mean, of course, you start out thinking rosy, but, by the end of the project, and it was my first project, my mindset was, well, as long as I at least break even, this is a great learning curve for me, or a great learning experience. And I thought I was going to make 10 grand, but when we listed it, it went in multiple offers for higher than list price. So I ended up making 40. So for me, I was happy with that.
Absolutely, yeah. If you have the expectation of getting through this property, you're going to learn a lot, transfer it to the next one, and that's where you're going to make your money. I mean, you came out very nice on this property, this first flip. So I'm sure it's just icing on the cake.
Yeah, totally. And to be honest, I did better on the first flip than the second or the third, but the fourth, that's going to be really good.
Well, yeah. So that first one kind of kicked it off. So this second flip, this is the one that was literally next door to your first flip. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Literally next door. So the whole time we were, working, and I wasn't working, but I would visit the property often and do walkthroughs with contractor. But I'd be looking out the window at this really nasty, ugly home next door that was vacant, and had been vacant for I don't know how many years prior. The gentleman that lived there had passed away, and it was sitting there in a trust in the adult son's name. I just kind of chased him down and said, "Hey, I want to buy your house. I'll help you. It seems like you might not, there's a lot of work to be done." And it was really, really bad. And it took a number of months and a lot of hand holding, but I did end up buying that house for $85,000. And it's the exact footprint of the house next door.
Mhm.
Um, it needed a ton of work, a ton of work, everything new, basically. Um, I ended up selling it for the exact same $380,000 as the house next door without that extra square footage because I didn't have it. So I had a couple hundred less square feet in this house, but ended up selling it um, for the same price ultimately at the end. I ended up making a little bit less on this one. I made $35,000. Not super happy about that, but a lot of lessons learned. One of which is the time that it takes is everything. And this one was supposed to take 16 weeks. It took 32 weeks. And that just ate up a ton of my profit.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Time is money in this business, especially when you're borrowing money. I imagine you're using hard money or private money. You're paying,
Yep.
over 10%
Yep.
typically on the borrowed funds. And that can add up very quickly. So
Yeah.
every day is hundreds of dollars in interest that we're paying to
Yeah.
property taxes, holding costs. So how did the time go, to 32 months or 32 weeks? Is it just because it was a full gut rehab or just a scope of work, scope creep?
So yeah, scope of work. I mean, for what needed to be done, 16 should have been enough. We ran into some really long delays with the city for permits. Longest of which was we had to demolish the old garage completely and do a brand new rebuild on a detached garage, and that took months. It was just ridiculous. Secondly, the contractor that I used was the same contractor I used on the previous house. Um, and at the same time, we haven't gotten to this yet. I acquired the third flip, and I made the mistake of hiring this contractor to run both projects at the same time. And that was not smart. Even though, he convinced me that it'll all be great. No, but I shouldn't have done it. He should have never said he could do it. It took a lot longer than it should have for both the second flip and the third flip for that reason.
It's a very interesting point, and I'd love to unpack that a little bit because this could be a huge learning lesson for people who are getting into multiple flips. And
Yeah.
it sounds efficient. It sounds a lot easier to hire that same contractor to run multiple projects, but it obviously takes a certain level of organization and resource management to be able to handle those things. Right, a flip there's a certain timeline of how each part of the flip should go, each part of the renovation. So yeah, I'd love to kind of unpack that. What do you think went south when you hired the same contractor for both flips?
I exactly what you just kind of pinpointed. I just don't think I think in his mind it was all going to be fine, but when he ran into delays with one of the cities for permits, I think he didn't know what to do with his teams, crews, and I think he took on other projects to keep them busy, not, at the same time having my other flip over here. I just think it screwed him up. He didn't know how to handle it, and we ended up paying a lot of money for the extra hold time.
Gotcha. So yeah, seems like he kind of dragged his feet getting certain things done. His crews are over here when they should be on your
Yep,
project. So
yep, yep, exactly, exactly. And you again, it's like you said, it's a lesson. It's a lesson for me. I think it was a lesson for him too. He's a good guy. He wasn't, trying to be shady and lazy, but just he was overwhelmed. And at that point, I was already in this deep with both projects. I didn't really feel like I could or should make a change at that point. I just, the contracts were signed. I don't know. Maybe I should have in hindsight, but I didn't. And so both projects one took 32 weeks and the other one took 28 weeks, and they were both supposed to take 16. So
got it. What was your budget on the second flip that needed everything?
the original repair bid was 170. I ended up having to spend 205, and that also was a lesson learned for both myself and the general contractor. He thought he gave me some incorrect advice about what we are going to have to do for electrical when he gave me the original bid, and turns out we had to do way more. Um, we had to do some additional foundation repairs that he thought were going to be not that big of a deal, things like that. So he didn't get those items bid out officially. He just gave me what he thought the bids were going to be from subcontractors, and he turned out to be wrong on a couple of them. So, anyway, it was supposed to be 170. It ended up being 205.
Got it. Do you think how do you think there would have been a way to avoid that in the future, or having your general go out and actually get those bids? Do you think if he did that, it would have at least set the right expectation up front?
100%.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. And that when I am now in my fourth project, I'm approaching it in an entirely different way. Um, I'm actually getting those bids myself. I'm not obviously a contractor, but I am managing the project instead of letting someone else manage the project. And wow, it's night and day. It takes time, and if you're trying to scale a business, it's not ideal to spend this much time, in the weeds like that. But that's because of what happened the last couple times. That's what I'm doing now.
absolutely. Yeah, no one's going to manage your investment, your property, your business like the owner, right? Like yourself. So I
Right.
think, yeah, it's easy to get caught in the idea of delegating everything and just being at the top. But I think there are times where it does make sense and it will pay dividends to roll up your sleeves and get involved in the project and just make sure that the outcome is the way that,
Yeah.
that you want. And especially when there's so much on the line, every day is costing money. So yeah, I don't think it's wrong to get more involved in these projects.
Yeah, and I think for me being so new at all this, I, getting more involved in this project, in the bid process and everything, I'm making better connections with the subcontractors that I will know who to go to for future. And when I just had the GC, I was relying on him and his relationships. And so that's all fine and dandy. But when the rubber meets the road, he he probably he didn't go get bids for these. He just went to the guys that he normally goes to. And, that I'm sure turned out not to be the most affordable or the best choice.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned getting permits as well. Sometimes the city can be a big bottleneck
Yeah,
and drag their feet. So, I do know some house flippers that don't get permits. So I think, especially if you're working on very old properties with outdated systems. So I think,
yeah,
those would probably be required to do the kind of level of renovation that you're doing. So, just curious your experience with pulling the permits, the cost, as well as like how long it took to actually get the approved plans from the city that you're working with.
Sure. So the first flip, and this is something I'm learning too. The first flip, when this GC bid the project for me, he gave me a flat fee. He said permits are going to be, 1,800 bucks. I can't remember what the number was. I'm like, okay, or I think it was a lot less than that. It might have been like $1,000, and I said, okay, great. And that's the last I heard of it. I never had to get involved in anything, and whatever. The second time, the second house he bid on, he bid, okay, the permit fee is 800 bucks plus whatever the city charges. So in other words, he was charging me for him, applying for the permit and stuff, and then I was going to pay um the city actual fee, which I was like, okay, fine. What's that going to be? Another, 100 bucks? No, I knew it was going to be more than that, but turns out, yeah, no, it's huge because it's a percentage of your reno budget, basically. So the permits at that house ended up costing me like $3,500, and I thought it was going to, be like 1,500. So that's been an interesting one, learning lesson. And then at this fourth flip, um, another lesson learned. I was going to pull the permits myself as the homeowner and then hire all the subcontractors underneath. I unfortunately found out that the city wouldn't grant me a permit because I purchased the home under my LLC and not under my personal name,
Hmm.
which I knew some cities had that rule, but in this particular city, I thought it was going to be free and clear. So that was a little bit of a panic, and I ended up finding another general contractor that was willing to, that a friend of a friend kind of was willing to pull the permits for me. I'm just going to pay him a little fee. He's going to come and look at the work before we, call for inspections. But I figured out a way around it, and going directly to the city allowed me to be more selective in the value that I place on the job, so that when when they charge me the percentage, it wouldn't be so ugly. So anyway, lots of learning, lots of learning. Uh, as you once said to me, Ryan, you're a professional problem solver. That's how I feel every day. It's something new tossed at you, and you figure out how to deal with it.
Definitely. Sometimes I call us firefighters because we're always putting out fires in
100%. Yep.
situations like this.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. You're definitely a problem solver, and you got to think on your feet, got to be on your toes, and get creative, resourceful, and figure things out. Day by day. Every project's different, as you saw. Even flipping the house next door had a significantly different rehab budget.
Yeah.
Just the condition that these properties are in can be very different. So,
Right.
it seems like you were able to adapt, and sure, you didn't make as much as you wanted on that property, but you were still able to acquire the property without having to spend any money on marketing.
Yep.
So you basically everything you'd make after that didn't have to replenish your marketing budget, which is fantastic.
Yep.
And you still did come out profitable, right?
Yeah. Yep.
$35,000 is
Yeah.
still more than I know some investors minimum is to actually do a deal. So I think it's still a very respectable profit. I'm sure the amount of work you put in, you probably deserved a lot more. It sounds like just from managing that big of a rehab, but you're learning so much, and now you're
Exactly.
rolling that learning into the next one and the next one.
That's exactly how I'm looking at it. And each, as I roll through these, I pull things that I learned from the previous one, and it's going to keep getting better. I know it is.
Absolutely, yeah. With the
Yeah.
connections you're making, the experience you have, it
Yep.
certainly will. And you mentioned your third one. Let's talk a little bit about that. And by the way, I'd love to show some photos of the finished product because I've just got to say, every home that you've showed us that you've renovated just looks absolutely phenomenal, like it's in a magazine.
Thanks.
And they're all a little bit different too. And I remember this one in particular, your third flip, just had some amazing finishes. The bathrooms were just were really beautiful. So I really commend you for the design element to it, and it's no surprise that they've been selling quickly and over asking price.
Thanks, thanks. Yeah, the third one was an on-market MLS listing, and it was in a suburb of Minneapolis. It's a pretty affluent suburb, but the particular neighborhood that it was in is more of a conservatively affluent suburb. Anyway, the houses are all, built in around mid-century. This one I think was built in the 50s. And it was a lovely elderly couple that lived there for 50 or 60 years and hadn't really touched it, but it was in great shape. But, design wise, decor wise, it was very outdated. So that one is the one I had the most fun with, to be honest, because I got to do some fun design stuff. I didn't make the most money on it, but again, that comes down to how long the project stretched out, um, which stinks, but whatever. Anyway, this one we also added square footage. I finished the basement at this one, which in Minneapolis and Minnesota, basements are everywhere. Um, the newer homes and the renovated homes, people take advantage of and they finish out those basements, but it didn't used to be that way. So there's a lot of houses here that have potential down in the dungeon. Um, but yeah, we finished it out, threw in some egress windows, so it feels like very light and airy. It doesn't feel like a basement, and gained almost 1,000 square feet by doing that, livable, usable square feet. Um, Opened up a couple walls to make the kitchen and living room areas more of an open concept, and then from there, I really just tried to find some beautiful finishes that made the house feel upscale but truly, I was very budget conscious. And because of the neighborhood that it was in, I was able to, put the set the price, or the ARV I knew could be closer to 700 grand. So I bought it for 421. I put in about 135, added that square footage, and sold it for 705. But yeah, and you'd think, oh, that sounds like a really big spread. I still only made 35 grand. Again, the time that I had to pay the interest on those loans, it really sucks the profit.
Totally, totally. Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the spread, I'm looking at the listing here. It was listed for $400,000 originally on the market. You purchased it above asking price at
Hmm.
421,000. So, we always like to say the asking price doesn't necessarily equate to value or what we want to pay as investors. We have to run the numbers to ultimately
Yep.
determine what can we afford to pay. So you paid above asking price, 421, and then we're able to sell it for 705, right? Which
Hmm.
is 200, 280 something $1,000 in gross margin. Your rehab you said was
It's about
120,
135, give or take. Yeah.
135.
Yep.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
with the interest payments, it kind of eats away at that gross margin. How did you kind of fund it? Was it a hard money lender, and how much did you put down on it?
Okay, so this one was the first deal that I did that I actually had to get private money in addition to hard money to for gap funding, because I did not have any down payment myself, because I already had that previous one under contract and I was working on it at the same time. So that is also why this one cost me a lot more to hold. So I have a great hard money lender local here that I really, really like to work with. And they connected. I said, look, I have this deal. I want to make it happen. What are my options? I can't come up with the down payment. And they connected me with several private money lenders that they do deals with, or they don't do deals with, but they have worked with a bunch of times on their own funded projects. And so I talked to a few of those, and I ended up going with one guy. The private money is more expensive than the hard money, even in this case. So it cost me a lot to hold that property for all those extra weeks, for sure. But that's the only way I could make it happen. If I didn't go that route, I wouldn't have been able to do the deal on this one. So happy
Yep.
that I did.
Yeah. So a lot of people ask, how do you flip a house without any money out of pocket, right? So this is
Yep.
exactly one way you can do so, where you
Yep.
have a hard money lender who puts up, let's say, 80% of the project cost, and then you find a private money lender who puts up the rest, right? They'll basically cover the down payment and then any out of pocket costs, and
Yeah.
then kind of carries you through the project. But then you ultimately are paying two different lenders. So
Correct.
yeah, I've structured the same kind of thing in ways where you could either pay interest to the private money lender or even split profits with the private money lender. I've done that as well, where you're
Mhm.
kind of just you're not paying interest, but anything left over you split 50-50 or 30-70, whatever that might be. So yeah, it sounds like the deal itself. I mean, I commend you because it looks like the
Thank
numbers are
you.
great. It's close to 150,000 in profit before financing costs. So
Yeah.
technically, if you were paying all cash, there'd be over six-figure profit. But then
Right.
you're still able to get into this deal without a lot out of pocket. So it's that trade off between do I do the deal and I can do multiple deals without having to put up my own capital, which is what a lot of investors do, or do you just kind of wait and do one at a time and keep more of that profit? But if you run the numbers every time, you can overall make more by doing more deals.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more work, more to manage.
Yep.
So that's amazing that you're able to put all that together and be resourceful, network to ultimately find lenders to cover up the entire investment. That's amazing.
Yeah, and, to be honest, this one was, I'll call it almost an accident too. I mean, I put my, offer in on this property, and I just knew it was undervalued. I knew because of the neighborhood, it was gonna sell for way more, so I put in my offer. We did an escalation clause, and I maxed mine out at the 421. I I never honestly in a million years thought I was gonna get the deal, and so when I did get the deal, I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm doing it." So,
Yeah, that's amazing. What did you say was your take home after paying all the lenders and
yeah, it wasn't that great. It was only 35 grand again. So it was about the same as the second one I was doing at the same time. And but again, it was a learning curve for me too, because this one I got to do a more upscale property, and I learned that I can do it and it will sell. And it's more experience. Um, and I sound like I'm like, oh, I only made 35,000. It sucks. I'm happy. I'm happy with it. Of course, I would have liked to make more, but it's progress for me. So,
totally? And I think the thing that you should be confident about is that once you're in a position to not have to have that second lender, now you're making all that profit yourself.
yes,
So it's
exactly.
just the trade off between borrowing someone's money and asking someone else to get in on the deal versus, eventually
Right.
you're going to put yourself in the position after you do some more of these where you're not going to need that other lender, or
Exactly.
you're going to be able to negotiate better to be able to have them take less of the deal.
Right.
So,
Right.
and then
And
maybe
this
you'll
goes,
find, yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
maybe you'll find a private money lender that'll put up all of the funds for a relatively lower cost of capital than when you put together two individual lenders, because the second private money lender, they are in a riskier position being that second position. So in theory they should be charging a higher rate because their capital is less protected than the
Correct.
first lien holder, which is the hard money lender.
Correct. But all of this is connecting me with other lending resources as well. So the company that I said I really enjoy working with, this hard money lender that's local, just so happens that the gal that I have worked with on a couple of these deals just left there and is standing up her own private money situation in town as well. So I'll be able to connect with her directly. Maybe maybe doing a deal just with the private instead of the hard. So we'll see. But like, again, the network keeps growing and you get more opportunity and you learn more, and it's I feel like I still feel like I'm on the springboard and ready to, take off.
I feel that too. And you're gaining a track record, which is so important when you're raising capital and you're, networking, bringing new investors, talking to new contractors. So, you're in a position that you're going to just continue to build that momentum, continue to snowball, just building on that track record. So,
Yeah, I hope so.
it's very exciting. So, so flip number four. I know you acquired that relatively recently. This
Mhm.
was one that wasn't an easy one to acquire. I know we had talked about that kind of back and forth in the community, and we were
Yeah.
rooting for you the whole time. There's kind of an interesting way that you acquired it. from a city. And so, but hey, congratulations, you bought that deal, and sounds like this one is going to be one of the better ones from what
I
you're
think
saying.
so. Yeah. Thank you very much for helping me navigate that. You and Peter both. So this one, yeah, this was an interesting property. It was also an MLS listing. It was owned by the city of Hopkins, which is a suburb of Minneapolis as well. The city had only owned it for like 3 months, and I wasn't sure what the whole deal was. I did a deep dive to figure out what had gone on, but long story short, a guy purchased it a few years ago, tried to make it into a well, he did. He ran it as a like a group home, sober house, if you will. Um, had 4 tenants in it, but there were 9 bedrooms, and so he tried to make it. He had to go get some city ordinance change to be able to allow 9 non-related people to live in this residential neighborhood under one roof. The city declined to do so based on a bunch of neighborhood feedback. And then the guy sued the city. Long, long story. City settled with him by buying that house from him for a ridiculous amount of money. And then they put it on the market for much lower. And I got it. There were, as you remember, there were some other turns and twists in there too. But anyway, I got the house. Um, it's large, by far the largest house I've dealt with so far, and it is also in a very affluent neighborhood. So my ARV, I have a lot of room to work here. Um, it I bought it for 480. I will sell it for in the ballpark of 900. I will spend 220. I think it's going to go for more than 900. I will spend 220 on it, and at a minimum, I will pull 75 grand out of this house. It, I'm 100% confident this time. So,
That's fantastic. Buying a property for 480 with a $900,000 ARV, with some upside is pretty incredible. So,
it's a huge project. We're doing a ton of work, but this time I cut out that other general contractor, like I said, and I'm holding it a little closer and able to manage every penny a lot more closely than I was able to with the previous deals. So, a lot more confident on how it's going to turn out.
definitely. So there's no general contractor on it. You're going to act as the general. You're subbing it out. You have
Yep,
a timeline. That's amazing. Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
that's so
Just
exciting.
passed our rough end plumbing yesterday, so we're moving along.
There we go. Yeah, you're moving.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
yeah,
Yeah, interesting project. Yeah, large home, 9 bedrooms, or, 9, 10 bedrooms. And you mentioned part of the plan is to turn it back into a 5 bedroom.
yeah.
So it conforms more to the neighborhood, conforms to what the city is requiring. And
Correct.
it's just
Yeah,
a little bit more of a sellable asset when you have 5 bedrooms versus, nine, or, more
right.
than that.
Yep,
It's a little bit hard to
yep,
maintain.
and yep, and we're so it'll be a 5-bedroom, 4 bath. We're gonna do 2 master suites, one on the main level, and then a second one on the upper level. And then I am finishing not all of the basement, but about 500 square feet of the basement into like just another living area, family room, or whatever. Mostly because the comps in the neighborhood show that I can get upwards of 900 if I do that. But if I keep it at the same square footage I have now, I'd probably be looking more around 8. So it totally makes sense to do. Um, yeah, it's a fun project. It's going to be, like I said, the by far the largest one I've done so far.
Definitely. Yeah, you started with smaller houses. Now you're in a very large house. So, are you kind of funding it the same way, same private money lender, kind of doing the two tier approach with the lending?
Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately, I am on this one. This one came up before the other two were fully closed and everything. So I'm in the same position, but I'm confident on the timeline on this one. It's 16 weeks out the door, um, and it's going to happen.
yeah, I believe it. That's super exciting, Stephanie. Is there, you've posted in our group, you're a buyer, you're actively looking. So, I love when you do that because people know that they can wholesale deals to you, they can provide deals to you, and you're actively looking. I always like to ask, our cash buyers, I recommend our students ask, their buyers that they work with, what's your minimum net profit that you look for on a deal? What's your deal ROI that you sort of look for, in the deal calculator that we use, which is primarily a fix and flip calculator,
I
just
use
so
that
happens to
all
have
the
a
time, by the
wholesale
way.
fee
I
in mind.
use
Yeah.
that deal
Mhm.
calculator every day. Still, for 2 years I've been doing it. Yeah. Well, I have, you're right. I made a post or two in the community that I'm a cash buyer, and I, laid out a few things that I look for. I know that I don't want to make less than 40 grand on a deal, and I know that I don't necessarily want to put a black and white answer on, well, what's your ROI requirement, whatever, because right now, as I said at the beginning, my goal is to just refill my coffers. I want to make some cash. So I don't want to spend 32 weeks making 40 grand again. But if I spent 16 weeks or 12 weeks or 8 weeks making 40 grand, perfect. Um, and I have had several of the wholesalers of the students in the community reach out, and we've had some good conversations. Nothing has panned out yet, but there are a few people that work this market that have been trying to make something happen. So I appreciate that. It's a good resource for me. It's a good resource for them. I think it could work great. Um, of course, I'm still looking to try to find the deals myself as well. But if one of them finds something before I do or get something under contract that makes sense, perfect. Sign me up. I'll gladly pay your wholesale fee.
Absolutely. It's a cost of doing business. And if someone brings you an amazing deal, it's totally
Yeah,
worth it.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, now that you have these deals under your belt, you have some rentals, what's life like now that you've kind of proven the model to yourself and you're scaling up? You started as a thought, started as a dream, started as an intention, but now you're actually doing it. Now
Yeah,
you're in it. So, I mean, what's life like now that you're flipping houses?
it's busier. um, well, it's good for me. As I mentioned earlier, I have my clock is ticking for my regular job, my business that I'm going to be selling in a couple of years. And so for me, this journey of the the flipping has 100% given me confidence that this is something I can do, and this is something I can do well, and this is something I can scale when I have a little more time. I'm struggling a little with that now because I have the other business as well. But I've it has your group uh, gave me such an amazing foundation, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of the help you guys have given. I mean, the training in and of itself is great, but even in the real world, when I can just pop in the community and just say, "Oh God, I have this issue. What would you do?" or whatever, it's truly, truly invaluable. And I really, really do appreciate it. And I just feel like with the networking and the community and just every bit of experience that I've gained through this journey, it just makes me feel confident. I know this is what I'm going to be doing for the next however many years. I might do this till the day I die. Who knows? It's not. It's a lot different than a 9 to 5 sit at a desk kind of job, which I'm cool with. If I can be flexible, if I can be making money but still be flexible in my lifestyle, I would do this for 30 years. I don't care. It's fun. I love it. I love the problem solving. I love hate the headaches. Love hate relationship, right? But I just love every bit of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm right there with you. Not planning on giving up on real estate. I'm planning to do it for the foreseeable future. It's a career that you can take all the way to the grave and beyond. So, definitely right there with you.
Yeah. And I think just continuing to learn and figuring out ways to do things better. I may have mentioned this to you a while ago. I'm actually getting my real estate license. I'm in the process of doing that, not because I want to sell real estate, but because it will help me do better, find better deals for myself, make better deals for myself on the buy side. And maybe I will sell my own deals. I'm not sure, but it will help. It'll help these skinny margins be a little bit more um, friendly for me. And so I just think there's so many different avenues and so many different ways that you can you can take the real estate journey. And I just think for me, it's a great way forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you're just looking to learn, you're looking to add more tools in the tool belt. You know, it's a reason why we don't just talk about wholesaling, we also talk about flipping, buying and
Yeah.
holding. Because it's a very opportunistic industry. You know, once you
Mhm.
learn the business and really just start to expand your mind and get these skills, you know, there's so many ways that you can take advantage of it, and you can, you know, create the business that serves you versus, you know, you serving a business. So
Yeah,
it's really
that's
cool that you found your niche and that you're growing and, you know, doing this really on the side of a full-time commitment, right? This is business that you've had for many years, and now you're kind of fitting the real estate on the side of that and have done so well
yeah,
in light of that. And so I think you're setting yourself up for, you know, to really ramp things up once you if you decide to go full time on it.
yeah.
You know, in a couple of years once you exit your other business.
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan, and, so far everything looks, like I feel like I'm on the right track. I definitely do. So,
Amazing. Are you looking to expand your rental portfolio as well, or are you gonna just be kind of buckling down on the flips and just
uh,
stack as
in the
much as you
long
can?
yeah, in the long run, I will definitely, acquire more rentals, but for the next just couple of years while I'm trying to get out of my other business and refill my coffers with this one, I'm just gonna keep focusing on flips. But yeah, I definitely do have a goal of, another handful of rental properties. I just it makes so much sense. It is just for me, it just makes the most sense in the world. I like the short-term rental game because well, in another previous career, I used to work in the hotel world. So I have a lot of experience in hospitality as well. So the short-term rental game I really like. Not a big fan of being a landlord, so I, I don't really want to do, long-term holds, but long-term rentals. But I know that that is also something I may consider looking into down the road.
Absolutely, yeah. The game is just acquiring real estate and to be able to hold it, right? That
Yeah,
income allows us just to hold it long term, and, you know, ideally produce some cash flow along the way. But you know, I can speak from experience. A lot of the houses that I flipped in the past, they're worth a lot more money now, and if I had just
yeah.
figured out a way to hold them, I'd probably be better off. So I
Yeah,
think a lot of
that's how I
flippers,
feel about my very first rental that I sold,
yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so that's awesome, Stephanie. I love the path that you're on, and, you know, the accomplishments you've had, and it's just been a joy and just to watch you and, you know, be a part of it. So, we're all so proud of you here at Real Estate Skills, and you're definitely a rock star. And we so appreciate you sharing every time in the community, and, you know, hopping on a second time here to share with our audience just about your amazing journey. And I know it's still just the beginning for you. So, like you said, you're on a springboard, so we look forward to continuing to serve you and being right there for you on the next chapter.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying all those things, and thank you guys for being here and such a great resource. And I for anyone who actually does watch this and is trying to just make their first deal happen, trust me, I 100% get where you are, and I feel it. I feel the stress, and I feel the anxiety, and the fear that like prevents you from wanting to take that first big leap or whatever. Just do it. Just keep doing it. It keep your nose to the grindstone, and it will happen. It will happen eventually. It took me a long time. I thought it took me a long time anyway, and I didn't take the conventional. I didn't take the route that I thought I was going to take. But I'm happy that I just kept doing it, and you guys have been just amazing in your support. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome, Stephanie. Yeah, thanks for those words. You know, for those who are in that position and you know, just need a little bit more encouragement, because, you know, the only way to really fail in real estate is to give up. So I think you're a great example of that. You stuck with it. You even pivoted strategies, and now look at you. You know, you're tearing it up and you're ripping deals, and you're just leveling up. So we're really just excited to see what's next for you, Stephanie. Yeah, again, thank you everybody for watching, and, you know, hope you guys are inspired and see what's possible with real estate. Whether you're looking to wholesale, flip houses, or start acquiring rentals, there is a path for you. So for anyone else who wants to learn more about how to get involved with the real estate skills community, just go to realestateskills.com to learn more. Thank you so much, Stephanie, and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks, Ryan. It's been fun.